mystery and horror, the air itself is filled with monsters.
Children of the night, what music they make. He's alive! He's alive!
Well, hello, all you monster fiends, and thank you for joining us for another deep dive, factoid-filled episode exploring Hollywood's most famous monsters. I am your mistress of ceremonies, Sam, and I am joined, as always, by Dan from Bleading Marvelous. Say hello, Dan.
Hello, Dan.
Whoa, there was some anticipation there. I was like, is she going to say it? Is she not?
Dramatic pause.
Oh, I forget the theatre.
The theatre part. It's all about the theatre, the execution of one's words, all that jazz. What the fuck was that?
It was so good though. I was totally drawn in. I loved it.
I need to go.
Oh, it's been a day. I know this is we recording this not on a Monday, but on a Thursday. Happy Burns Night.
Oh yeah, and all that.
Yeah. I'm half Scottish and everything, did you know? I mean, it's not that I don't tell every fucker who asks us. Or even if they don't ask us, I'm like, yeah, I'm half Scottish.
I'm a potato. Sorry.
I'm 36% potato.
Clearly, there's not been a famine for a while on this side of the country, but, you know.
Same here. So, today, I am so excited about this one. Probably getting more excited as the day has gone on, but we are doing another man behind the makeup with Rick Baker. Da, da, da. And I have clued myself up. I now feel I know this man better than I ever will know this man. I feel more connected to this one than I did to Tom Savini. I'm not gonna lie. And I don't really know why, and probably we'll figure that out as we go along. But I will get the disclaimer out the way with, and we will crack on with Mr. Rick Baker. So, everything discussed in today's episode is our opinions and our opinions alone. If you'd like to discuss anything from today's episode, please come and join us in the Discord page, the Facebook page, or the comments section, where we can have an open discussion. What we won't have is anyone coming for us and telling us our opinions are wrong. We can all agree to disagree in fandom. So let's keep it fun, keep it kind, and keep the toxic behavior out of nerdism.
Well, I suppose. Just don't be a dick.
Be a dick. Don't be a dick. Right. So, Richard Allen Baker, or as we know him as Rick Baker. He is an American retired special makeup effects and creator. Rick is mainly known for his creature designs, and that will be it may be our main focus. I don't know, given what I've been learning about today, as we take you through the man behind the makeup with Rick Baker. Yes. So, Mr. Baker, how have you found doing your research on him?
There's so much. Whose idea was this, Sam? Honestly, I mean,
I was saying to someone today, we are either really stupid or really fucking genius. I can't quite figure that one out yet.
We'll see how the episode goes before I make a judgment.
This is actually part one of part two, because Rick does have an extensive back catalogue. So today we are solely focusing on the 70s and 80s. So if you're joining us for the 90s and 2000s, you're going to be bitterly disappointed. You're going to have to wait a week.
Yes, come back next week.
Yep. But please stick around, because honestly, the 70s and 80s are some of the most creative and innovative makeup that has ever happened. I can only say that for one of them, because I can't think of the rest of them. But I do have some bits about the man first. So he was born on the 8th of December in 1950 in Binghamton, New York.
Mm-hmm.
He has won 7 Academy Awards, nominated for 12, won 7. He is also the first recipient of Best Makeup Artist.
And who presented him that one?
Vincent Price. Oh, it was Vincent Price. How amazing is that? It was for American Werewolf in London, which honestly can't wait to talk about. My source material for this podcast has been mainly Wikipedia. Thank God they list everything down in order, but also I have listened to some podcasts from when Rick's book was brought out. So
Manifesto, which I think I mentioned last week. I think it's called, is it Manifesto? No,
they said it so many times. It's a 2-parter and it weighs like 7-8 pound or something. It is a big book.
And it was 125 quid if you wanted to purchase it from Amazon.
Wow.
Now, I love Rick and I would buy it in a heartbeat if I was rich.
Yeah.
But trying to justify it, but apparently everybody says it's absolutely amazing.
So the podcast I listened to was Mark Maron, and you could tell skimmed the pages.
Right.
Skim the pages. Let's just go through the motions. These are your movies. Da, 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 da. The other podcast I listened to, which I instantly text Dan straight away, was Gilbert Gottfried's. And it was from 2019. It made me so sad that Gilbert is no longer with us anymore, because I have learned so much about him, just him alone, from that podcast. Didn't know he was a huge Monster fan, like massive, but that man knows his movie history. And it was lovely for him and Rick going back and forth. Like they knew what each other was talking about. And it was such an amazing conversation. And I learned a lot through it. I loved it. I loved that one.
I loved how Frank had to keep him in line, though. Frank had to say to him, what about this? And he would be like, oh, do you remember that advert that was in the back of the Film Monsters thing where you bought the praying mantis or whatever? And he'd go off on a 10-minute tangent about a stick with a bit of fluff on it. And it was like, you could hear Rick knew exactly what he was talking about, but you could hear him. Rick's not somebody, and he openly admits this, that has a very outgoing personality. He's not very he's not a wisecracking guy. He's not that kind of person.
He's very somber when he talks.
Yes, and I think he has a way, when you see him towards the end of a podcast or an interview, he's relaxed into it.
Yeah.
So it seems a little bit more amicable. I don't know what the word is. Amenable, maybe.
Yeah. He's just very more natural towards once he's like getting into the swing of it. Yeah. But he's not a funny, like, not that he's not a funny guy. It's just that he's very matter of fact about his life. Like, I think he's getting to a point now where so much has happened. It's hard to try and keep on top of everything that he's done. I did listen to Schmorschorschen podcast. Can't say his name.
I did it in small bites on YouTube. You know, we have 3-minute bites.
Yeah.
And I tried to stage Smogan's yes.
Could not do it. But what I did notice, what he said on one of Schmorschorschen's podcast was that he retired because of CGI. He the industry was getting too CGI and he left. He corrected that mistake on Gilbert Gottfried's and said, and I knew where he said it because I heard him say it, and he went, I just got a bit carried away. This is not the reason why I left.
Yeah. And I don't blame him. It's got to be hard because he likes, I've watched a lot of behind the scenes documentaries, like for a lot of the movies. And I think it was one for, we're not going to talk about it just yet, but one for, I think it was Harry and the Hendersons, where you could see he was on a computer. He's working on an old Windows 95, obviously way before then because it's in the 80s, but like some program roughly like that, where you could layer, you had an artist sketch scanned in and he was drawing on top of it on a keyboard, like literally. And it was amazing to see because you forget how we all used to work, years and years ago with the earlier computers, and he was saying that he loves the marriage of the two, but he doesn't like all exclusively green screen or blue screen. He likes it when one complements the other, and he's more than happy to work with that. But he just struggles if it's like Marvel movies. He can't bear them. He finds them horrific.
I can understand it more. I'm always under the guise that I love practical effects. I love anything that can be done practical. I think it makes more to the movie, more to the imagination, more to making it more realistic, more real life. But I can understand the place of CGI in some places. I really can. And I can see it from his point now when he talks about his method of working. He's not just making a mask that is, because what I think I did learn about is Rick Baker specializes in masks. I didn't really know that. Because of his line of work and everything that he's done, you just think makeup, and it's not. It's makeup masks. And he says like how much detail and like he is putting every like line and fine bit into it, and it just makes us think. No wonder, because of how much time you've spent there, why you think it's a bit of maybe a cop out with CGI. So I can kind of understand his method in that. But the Academy Award thing, like that blew my mind. I knew he won for American Werewolf in London. I didn't realize there was fucking 6 more after that.
Yeah, I mean, so many. I knew he won one for Gorillas in the Mist. I'm pretty sure he did.
No, he didn't.
He was nominated.
Yes. So he's been nominated 12 times and he's won 7.
Yeah, because
how he did not win for that.
I mean, although that film, I couldn't sit through it again.
I will never watch it.
I've watched it once, I think, with my nan and granddad, not long after it came out. You know, like proper Gorillas in the Mist. But I had This is where I have to kind of confess to something.
Oh.
I have, like people love dinosaurs, people love movie animals, or like I have a thing for apes or monkeys, right?
Okay.
Any movie that has an ape or monkey in it that has good eyes, I love it. And so, I mean, whilst I know these are CG heavy that I'm about to say, Peter Jackson's King Kong, Andy Serkis, he's my go-to monkey man with Caesar as well. He is, I just absolutely adore him, and I'm incredibly grateful I've got to meet him. But I love anything, just genuinely anything with monkeys in. Always have done. Would never have one. Would never want to be in the vicinity of or a monkey. But what kicked it off for me really was something we'll talk about next week and go into details, but was the Tim Burton's version of Planet of the Apes. For me to see people being able to act whilst looking at monkeys, and we're talking Tim Roth, we're talking Helena Bonham Carter, talking Michael John Colfie, gone blank on his name, but yeah.
Duncan Clark.
Yeah, Michael.
Clark, yeah. I think I said that wrongly around.
Yeah. Michael Duncan Clark, yeah.
That's it.
Paul Giamatti, I think it is. Like there's just laundry list of amazing actors, and like being able to see how well they did. I mean, okay, yeah, it's got Marky Mark in it, but that's not the end.
Things can be forgiven.
But just the way, that's the one I can't wait to watch again now with today's eyes the next time, because Tim Burton and Rick make a fantastic coupling for Edward as well.
Oh yes, that is another one, that one. But just to go back to the I was going to say now. Oh, I got too excited. You mentioned Ed Wood, and I just went, oh my god. I'll come back to it. But the one for Harry and the Hendersons, Ed Wood, the Nutty Professor.
Oh, okay.
Men in Black.
Yes.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yes, well, you can understand those.
And the Wolfman.
Now that one I struggle with, because I have seen it. It's the Benicio del Toro one, isn't it? And it is the one with Anthony Hopkins, that one.
Yeah. But he openly admitted he is not the head makeup artist. It was his protege that was the head makeup artist on that movie.
But he got nominated for either a BAFTA or something as well for The Howling. and he didn't do it. Rob Bottin did it. So I mean,
that's the one. That's the one. It's not the Wolfman. Then it was that one.
yeah.
That's
So
the one.
I mean, we all know because we've talked about what Rob did for The Thing, and on that podcast with Gilbert Godfrey, he even openly admits, he goes, he just put us all to shame when he did The Thing.
Yeah.
He was like, he'd come off the back of the Howling and went straight into The Thing, he said, and it was just like, oh, it was the other way around, it was something.
No, you're right.
Yeah. And he was like, he said he was my protege. He said he just wrote me a letter once, and I think you would have heard this on The Thing, where
but this is what we're gonna get into with these movies.
It's just fascinating, but like,
because I think that plays a huge part in it. So his protege, well, his mentor was the great
Dick
Smith, and I didn't know this. He did with his protege what Dick Smith did to him was he wrote him a letter, and Dick Smith wrote him back and invited him to his house and was happy to share his knowledge, his experience to this young 16-year-old boy who generally did not want to be in the place because it was the summer holidays. His parents were going to New York to see his grandmother who was dying. He did not want to go and see her because he wanted to make masks.
Yeah, that's all he wanted to do with his time. He was quite happy. I know he got his first job working at a stop-go animation /
he was like 16 or something.
Yeah, Gumby. Not a lot of people know who Gumby is, but I've got a rough idea. You know, I know who he is. He's like a blob with arms and legs. And it was doing work for that, and then another TV show. And so he said him and his dad went up there on one of the videos I've watched. Him and his dad went up there, and his dad said, "My son needs a job," and then he was like, "Okay, start Monday." You know, it was that simple.
How lovely does he describe his parents?
Yes.
How supportive.
He said they were a bit hippie, didn't he? Like, because they loved music, they loved horror films. And he said that that's the one thing that I was quite surprised at. And I don't know why, because in my mind, all special effects makeup has to go into horror at some point.
Yeah.
By horror, I mean like even facial injuries or like a broken nose or, you know, blood in general. But Rick hates
horror.
Doing horror makeup.
Yeah.
He hates it. Said, but it's purely because I think when you're in that industry and you go against someone, well, I wouldn't say go against, because him and Tom Savini are in totally different lanes. They're the best at what they do in their lanes. But like he was saying that he hates movies now that are slasher heavy or kills for the sake of kills, for getting the most goriest kill. He wants something to see something clever.
Yeah.
And I can completely understand where he's coming from. I mean, like I said, when we were watching The Blob, which you can go back and watch, that was something that was quite innovative for today, let alone back in the 80s when it was filmed. So it was
so unique.
So he's got a preconceived notion of what he believes movies should be, and he does get rather annoyed when they don't fit in those categories.
As we will find out when we go into part 2, because there's some great stories on one movie where if he didn't get his own way, something bad was gonna happen. But you are absolutely right. It was so refreshing listening to him talk about he loves monsters.
Yeah.
And he loves monster makeup, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's full-on slasher horror or gore horror. He's not a gore man. He does not like gore. And it was so refreshing. And I actually felt more connected. This is probably why I feel more connected to him, as much as I love me slashers. Like, come on. If you're a horror fan, you're gonna love your slashers. Like, Sleepaway Camp is one of, if not one of my favorite films of all time, and you can go and watch that episode because it's fucking hilarious. But I love and have more. I don't know if it's my old age or what, but I'm loving the monster movies. I'm loving I love the idea that this year we want to explore more of the B-side of horror, and that really excites us, and he fits into that wheelhouse so perfectly, especially with his first movie, Octoman.
Yeah, that's I actually watched a quick behind the scenes documentary. It's only about 5 minutes long, and it was it was someone talking to Rick. Rick was doing the voiceover, but they were actually showing the costume, and it was like an excerpt from the movie. And I considered going and watching it, and then I saw that, and I thought, oh, I'll see if it's worth it. I'm glad I didn't.
I'm so glad you didn't, because I was thinking of doing exactly the same thing. But what I'm going to have to make very clear when we are talking about Rick's movies is Rick isn't, how do I describe this? It's not like, for example, The Exorcist. He is that is not, he is not head makeup artist.
Nope.
So on the majority of his movies, he's not head makeup artist. He isn't even fucking credited in half of them. So it's not a, this is just stuff. Unfortunately, I think more of the 70s and 80s, probably more 70s than 80s, is more, this is what he worked on with other people. Not, it's not like Tom Savini, who was head of it, director of it, like you listen to him kind of thing. Rick did not do that.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say. Yeah, because the 70s was when he was establishing his career. So he said he'd take everything and anything as long as it didn't clash with something else. But it was when he met John Landis that everything changed. So, I mean, you're talking from the 70s to the 80s, just the beginning of the 80s, was when he would take, you know, he'd dress up a pigeon if they asked him to, because he knew that he needed to get where he needed to get. Like The Thing with Two Heads is a prime example. But again,
great segue. No, great segue, because that's the movie number 2.
The Thing with Two Heads, I started to watch it, right? Now, I've got patience. I can sit through some stuff if needs must, but I really thought of all the films that in his catalogue, I didn't need to sit through that. After 10 minutes, I was done. It was enough. It's a terrible film in every which way. Really but is. I love the fact that people use it, because I mean, you look at Sean Clark. Sean Clark's podcast is called The Thing with Two Heads. So it carries there's a whole thing where they had like I think one of the actors was like a really big actor at the time that was in the movie that they got, and he kept, I think he said to Gilbert, didn't he kept turning around saying, what is this film I'm doing, or why am I doing this
why
film?
am I doing this?
It was atrocious.
It's terrible. I texted Dan the other day and I said, listen, do me research. If out of all the movies from 70s, 80s, you know what I've not seen, what would you think I should watch? And she said, The Thing with Two Heads. And I thought in my head, absolutely fucking not. As soon as I saw the poster, I was like, no way. I
just remember Elvira having it on one of her video.
Yeah. Maybe I'd watch it if Elvira was popping in every now and again, like, hey, all you ghouls. What the fuck is this? It's the winner of the Medieval Brothers Golden Turkey Award in the category of Worst Two-Headed Transplanted Movie.
Yes, now I can completely understand that why, but I don't think that applies to the monkey. I think that applied to the person standing behind him over the shoulder.
Yeah, because it wasn't attached. It was just there.
You could see it wasn't.
It's so bad.
Rick was actually responsible for making the monkey. As far as I'm aware, that was his remit.
Yeah, it was. It just is. It was his special effects. He's uncredited. He's probably pleased, but he's happy to talk about it. This is the pathway. What you will learn is that he is the Monkey Man. He is well known as the Monkey Man, and you will see that pattern as we go along.
Yes.
It took me until the was it King Kong, and I went, oh, I'm seeing a pattern here. I'm seeing something. So yeah, The Thing with Two Heads is the thing. It happened.
He actually plays the ape.
Yeah, he is actually, for all makeup artist, special effects makeup artist, creator, designer, actor is something else that is added to his wheelhouse as well. Which I'll get into. It's not huge parts.
No.
But he is there. The next one, never heard of it. Schlock.
Schlock is an actual John Landis movie.
Is it?
Yeah, and skipping to another John Landis moment, but we'll get there in a bit, is the Thriller video. The poster for Schlock in every John Landis movie is in the cinema at the
Is
beginning. You know, where Michael's out having a chat with his girlfriend, and you've got all the movie posters going into the movie
Yeah.
theatre. Schlock's up there. There's the thing with two heads is up there. There's quite a few videos, like movie posters around that are really, really like, you go, oh, I see what you did there. So Schlock is a terrible film. He openly admits it's bloody awful. It was on a terrible small little budget. And John Landis, he got involved in it with John for he just wanted to work, so he didn't care what he did. And John Landis at that point didn't have the name he had. The whole thing with Tales of the Unexpected hadn't happened. I think it was Tales of the Unexpected, was it?
It was the Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone. Yeah, I knew it was one of those anthology type programs. None of that had happened yet, so you know we were in a position.
Oh, that doesn't happen until 83.
Is it 83? Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
83.
so he met John, and then he'd done Schlock, and John wanted to do American Werewolf, but the budget wasn't there for that just yet. So then he had a huge break between 73 to American Werewolf in 80. So he started 81. So he started taking all those jobs. So this is why you've got a pretty much consecutive movie per year, sometimes 2 a year.
Yeah.
Sometimes, until from after Schlock in 73 down to, and I'm going to ruin it, Empire Strikes Back in 80. So
he did all three.
That's the thing. It's when I did not know that. Believe it or not, I knew so much about Rick Baker. I didn't know he was Star Wars.
Nah, and all I kept thinking is, holy shit, I am going to on a Monsters podcast be able to talk about fucking Star Wars. Because if you know me, I am a Star Wars fan. So I lost my shit ever so slightly when I was like, oh my god.
I love my Star Wars. I will not have it told any other way. I love my bloody Star Wars, but I'm not going to be on the same level as knowledge and that you have for sure. But like,
oh, you don't know. The next one. So I know that I'm going in order at the minute, but there's some that I might skip because there's some that I generally have not heard of. Yeah. The next one, though, oh my god!
I know it's one of your all-time favorites.
1973, The Exorcist. He was special effects assistant. He is uncredited. He is literally an assistant because who is the makeup artist for The Exorcist?
Dick Smith.
And who is the protege of Dick Smith? Rick Baker. What I found so interesting, because when I saw that he was just an assistant, I was like, oh, he just helped out. But on the Gilbert Gottfried podcast, he explained he did, and holy shit, the bed did Max Souden's fucking makeup. He turned that 40-year-old man into an 80-year-old man.
That's why I think he's always looked like that.
Yeah.
Like, in my head, Max has always been that age, because you see him like that in The Exorcist, and up until recently when he passed, he always
in Star Wars. Max von Souden. Sorry, how could I ever get that name wrong? That man is a legend. But yes, he did his makeup. I have seen so many documentaries and behind the scenes of The Exorcist, and not once did I ever see Rick Baker's name come up. Why would I? Dick Smith is your makeup artist, and I knew that the makeup for Linda, the as the possessed Linda, is part makeup and part doll. And doll, the doll that they used, it's not so much of a doll, it is a mask kind of thing, but it was fitted onto a doll.
She broke her back, wasn't it? They had to some of the filming
had to be done in a different style, and there were certain things they could not expect Linda to be able to do. But for the best part, she was in full makeup, and the doll that they used, they wanted to know. I always remember this. It's one of my favorite bits of it. It's just a really old, grainy documentary, like of behind the scenes, and I'm sure they did it with Slimer as well. To get a genuine reaction out of people, they just put this doll in a taxi in New York and sent it around. And just to see people's reaction as the taxi stops And there's Regan sitting right there. And I'm sure they did it with Slimer as well. They would
Really.
just put Slimer in just obscure places and just to see what people's genuine reactions were.
I
But
know he did I do know one thing he did say he did on one of the documentaries I saw. You know, when it says help me across Regan's stomach,
yeah.
and then you've got the gaunt ribs, he did that whole mold of the distended stomach, the gaunt ribs, and he did the help me as well.
Oh my
That is
God.
Rick's contribution other than Max to actual Regan herself. So
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Honestly, the in-depth that you can go into The Exorcist alone, and then to know that like add Rick Baker into the fucking mix as well. And it's like,
yeah.
holy shit, I did lose my mind when he went into detail on that podcast. And I'm sitting there trying to work, and I'm like, oh, and then my colleague in front of us is going, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, yes, I'm perfectly fine, thank you. I'm just learning new things while I'm doing my work.
Learning.
Learning. I was so good at it. I was looking around for a fucking notepad, and I'm like, I work in an office. How the fuck do I not have a notepad in an office? But it was just really like the minute I saw The Exorcist on his filmography, I lost my shit. But when I saw Assistant, I was like, oh, okay. He just helped out. I didn't realize the extent of because that makeup on I can't think of his name now. Max. I can't think of his character name.
Father,
Ah,
yeah, that one. I've just gone blank as well.
I can't think of his name.
Well, that
It's
was what he was good for. That is Rick's very first paid job was an old age makeup on a stage actor. He was paid $75 to go in for a week or 2 weeks. I can't remember what he said, and make up this stage actor every night in old age makeup. He was 16, and that was his first paid job. And the guy kept wanting to give him a special effects makeup kit instead of paying him. And his dad went, "No, this is where you learn the responsibility of money. You accept the payment, and then you can, once you've paid your bills, you can then go and buy it if you've got enough left at 16." So he realized that, pretty quickly that his dad was trying to help him out.
Oh, honestly, his parents come across in every interview he talks about in such a loving and supportive way. It was so refreshing to hear.
He decided at one point, didn't he, that he was going to be a doctor.
Yeah.
And then he watched one of the many movies. I can't remember because there were so many on the Gilbert Godfrey podcast. They were rapid firing from Creature.
Yeah, it was
to this,
so
to that.
fast.
But it was one of the movies that literally he decided, oh, I'm going to give that a go. I wonder if I can do that. And then obviously he said about the Monsters of Filmland, looking up for the magazine and finding it, and then seeing how he could do it. He'd get my favorite bit was when he was saying, because trade secrets is a huge thing, or was a huge thing back then. He used to get a magnifying glass,
yes,
and blow up look at the pictures, because obviously we go like that now if we want to see something on your phone, right? No,
widen it up.
Old-fashioned magnifying glass to you youngsters that don't know what one of those is. And he'd try and see what the labels said on all the stuff in the backgrounds of the
little clever
pictures to see if he could get an idea of what it was they were using. And he said that they used to literally just peel the labels off in these places and put like adhesive on the front, and it was always spirit gum.
Always, oh yes,
some form of acetone or something. And it was just.
If we can just take a quick intermission to talk about his love for Jack Pierce, because if you don't have Jack Pierce, you don't have Rick Baker. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and his hatred for the Westmores as well.
Oh my God, did you just cheer when even Gilbert Godfrey was getting on board with the fact that the Westmores are dicks?
Yeah. He doesn't suffer fools, and he tells people when the right person should get the credit.
Yeah.
He will back him and Tom Savini, both back Millicent Patrick till they die.
Yeah.
And they both have the same level of contempt for Bud Westmore that I think anyone that knew him or knew of what the games he plays would have as well.
But even Gilbert Godfrey did as well. And he's just a fan. Even he was saying, and Millicent Patrick, and Bud Westmore's a dick. And then he did that great story of that he wasn't even holding the right brushes and they were upside down
in a picture. It's like, oh, come on.
Oh, it was so lovely to hear, because obviously if you've been listening to us from the start, you know our feelings on Bud Westmore and how much he can go and get in the fucking bin. Him and his fucking, it's just his crazy antics. But yeah, it was lovely to hear him talk about Jack Pierce, and I've heard him talk about him so many times before, and you are right, he doesn't suffer fools, and he's a very honest man. And he said the way that Jack was doing makeup at the time, as I think I've mentioned this before actually, the way he was doing makeup just was not evolving. Makeup has to evolve, it has to change, it has to up its game, it has to, you have to push that next step. And he wasn't. So he knew, unfortunately, that Jack was never going to survive. And unfortunately, having a Westmore in your studio house was very important, and Jack did get fired because of it. He puts it down to the fact he would not evolve his makeup.
Yeah.
Because we all know his technique of hot glue and fur.
Yeah.
And
it's lasted, and it's been used by even the best. Like Rick openly admits when he was doing the thing with two heads, he literally bought a blanket. And the body's made from a blanket, but then when you start getting into King Kong, when he played King Kong in 76, and I think that's the one with oh god, what's the name?
Jessica
Lange. Yeah. He played King Kong in that one, didn't he?
He played the hand of Kong.
But he was
the hand that grabs.
What has become his thing, and especially not just his, but his studio at the time, was the layer. He was an expert in laying yak hair.
Yeah.
Hence why he became the Monkey Man. And he still accredits there must be thousands and thousands of bald yaks running around in the wild somewhere, because he's got all the hair.
He was from King Kong. It just it evolves. He credits Lon Chaney as a massive obviously Lon Chaney is the epitome of makeup artist, like self makeup artist as well. The man who would he pushed boundaries to limits that nobody in the 30s would ever have thought to do. But what really blew my mind and what made me want to just go back to this era just a little bit before we go into Kong was when they were talking on the podcast about names, and Gilbert Godfrey was like, I got the opportunity to name my middle child and I wanted to call him Alucard because it's Dracula backwards. I'm not joking, Dan. I nearly threw my phone across the room and went, I did not know that.
I didn't either, and I know I feel such a dick because it's so fucking obvious, and I was sitting there going,
one of my favorite animes is called Hellsing. The main guy is Alucard.
Honestly, I've heard that name thousands of Castlevania, Alucard. I'm just going through going, that makes sense now.
I stood up at the moment. I'm working in I'm doing a special project at work, so I'm working in my own little room with my own little my little friends, and I literally stood up out my chair and went, "Did you know that Alucard is Dracula backwards?" And they all stood there and went, "What, like Castlevania?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Yes. Did you not?" And I went, "Can you not tell by this reaction that I did not?" I did not.
I don't know why it just passed me by, and it makes perfect sense. And I don't remember ever having a conversation about it with anyone else. So I'm just
I just threw the dyslexic card out there and went, dyslexic.
But it made perfect sense. And he was just like, he was like, my wife said, no, It's
Yeah.
like, fair
Fair
enough.
play. Fair play. I just wanted to bring that up so I could mention that because I honestly blew my mind. So, King Kong 76. This is probably the starting point of Monkey Man. And I saw a clip of it the other day. Oh my God, I cried my eyes out. King Kong is one of my mum's favorite movies, and she fucking loves it. We sat and watched the Peter Jackson one with her,
Yeah.
and she is fucking bawling her eyes out at the end, like hysterically crying. And she looks over to us and goes, "Do you not find this emotional? Do you have no soul?" She genuinely said that to us, and I was like, "No, I don't know. It took me a long time. I am a Planet of the Apes fangirl, and King Kong just wasn't quite there for us
Right.
until recently. It's been when I've gotten a little bit older that I'm like, I totally appreciate this. Like, I totally get this. And when I was watching a clip of it the other day, and it's when the military come in, I fucking cried my eyes out. It was a clip, but
I
the
mean,
realistic shooting, the
yeah.
blood, the markings, the fact that he is not as perfected as what we get later on with his monkey makeup, but it was very realistic to me. I
Yeah.
was very, even for just a clip, I am very much in that moment.
For me, I feel like King Kong is the perfect example of how CG should be used.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at the evolution, you've got the 1930-ish
Mm-hmm.
version, which was Fay Ray, and it
Yeah.
was stop go animation with what looked like, which I will always return to, the Chewits.
The Chewits advert,
The
but
Chewits advert
just to
start
interrupt
working.
you, just for 1 second, Fair Ray was the other person who gave him his Academy Award along with Vincent Price. Oh, phew, yay. Got that one out.
But yeah, you go from that one to then the 76 one. So you got maybe 40-year gap between the first King Kong and
Yeah.
this one in the
Yeah.
70s. And then you've probably got another 30 something year gap between this one and the Peter Jackson.
Oh, you need to stop saying them kind of numbers, mind.
But if you do look at the difference between the three, they're all three very different retellings of the same story,
Mm-hmm.
done in completely different ways and very clever different ways. I mean, I won't say that every piece of CG is needed in the Peter Jackson one. It's not.
Mm-mm.
But when you look at specifically on King Kong himself, the way that they left Andy's eyes in, and this isn't just because it's Andy, but because they were able to leave the actor's eyes in, you seem to get more emotion
Mm-hmm.
from the whole thing. So there was that marriage of still having an element of practical, even though it was the actor,
Yeah.
compared to just marrying the two together where it worked. Plus, I always love me a dinosaur fight, and to this day, I love the bit. I am a T-Rex fanatic. I always cheer the T-Rex. When it comes to Jurassic Park, I've even got a T-Rex tattoo because I freaking love T-Rexes. But for me, I love King Kong when he rips open the mouth of there's just an element. I know Rick's not got anything to do with the Peter Jackson one, but there's an element of progression within that one story
Mm-hmm.
that completely explains what Rick says about the marriage between the two. And
Yeah.
I genuinely think now you go into Skull Island and you're going into King of Monsters and
Mm-hmm.
King Kong versus Godzilla.
Godzilla.
I love the idea of bringing back those movie monsters,
Mm-hmm.
but we're getting into a territory where Kong don't look like Kong to me anymore.
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, they lost me when Samuel L. Jackson could give him the 30-yard stare. Samuel L. Jackson is staring out Kong, and I'm like, he's the only man who could get away with it, mind. But
Oh
like,
yeah, you can't
you
put
know,
anyone else in that role and expect it to happen.
but he will always win out for me. Kong, he will always win
Mm.
out. I mean, I love me a Godzilla, but there's something about
I have such an appreciation for them. I remember when we did the Godzilla one, and for all that I have not like immersed myself in it all, when I talk about it, I get really excited. And Kong is exactly the same. Like I have, and it probably is like comes from my mom. And that night when I just watched this fully grown woman completely break over a monkey movie. But yeah, and when you going back to the eyes bit, I do think it says a lot when it sounds really. Do you know when you look into a dog's eyes?
Mhm.
Do you ever think to yourself, "You've been here before"?
Well, I think, I mean, that's all they have to emote to you because they
Hmm.
can't tell you. So they're very expressive in their eyes. And I feel like you can have a conversation with a dog and they can look at you and you can tell whether they understand you or they're taking it in or not, or they're bored of you. I used to have a little Staffy Pringle, and he used to roll his eyes at me when he'd had enough, and he'd huff at me. He
That's
just
a dog who's been on this earth before, then.
honestly, like if I was annoying him too much by giving him cuddles, he'd just go and walk off. He'd just be like, the woman, just stop.
Yeah, my mum's Shih Tzu Harry. I just look into his eyes and think, "Oh my God, you have been here before." And then I look at Bailey and go, "You are new." But I'm just what my point was is that the eyes are so important to me when it comes down to like emotion.
Yeah.
And I think you can, and you are right, like leaving Andy's eyes in will make so much difference, regardless of what's going on here. If they are giving you something real, then it changes the whole aspect of what you are watching. Does that make sense? Or did
It
I just
makes
actually say that?
Yeah, it makes sense because if you look at Rick's iterations, then you start off with Thing with Two Heads Monkey, then you go into Kong.
Kong.
We'll backtrack in a second. I'm not skipping ahead too hard, but then you go from Kong to Harry, Bigfoot.
Holy shit, what an
So
evolution of
that is
his
a
style.
hell of a jump in around 10 years, I think it
Uh-huh.
is, or 8 years, something crazy like that. And it's like 10 years, yeah. So you roughly, it's an evolution of just ginormous proportions of
Yeah.
how he perfected. I
And
mean,
you
let's be honest, a Bigfoot is very similar to a monkey when we're looking at the hair punching,
hmm
sculpting, from a perspective of the bodysuit. It's all along the same lines.
yeah, it's just evolved, bigger, bulkier, maybe a different shapes and stuff. But yeah, you're right. Everyone thinks that Rick is famous for werewolves. And what I have learned is no, he is famous for monkeys.
He's the monkey man.
He is the monkey man. I am going to jump a few years forward, and we are in 77, and one of the greatest movies of all time comes out. Realistically, everyone in this movie thought it was going to be a shit show. This was B movie territory, and it turns out to be one of the most influential pop culture movies of all time. It is Star Wars. And holy shit, my bed. I am so glad I listened to that podcast today because he went into a lot of detail about,
I
and
I
Mark
actually
Maron, he actually talked a lot more about it.
I actually watched a documentary about it was I hate the way they carve a good documentary into about 80 pieces on YouTube.
Mm,
Just I will pay 99p to watch it if it's a
yeah.
thing. But yeah, I kept getting interrupted so that there was about 10 of these tiny little 5 to 8 minute clips that were strictly about Star Wars and about how he had no time on it
Mm,
at all and how the reshoots were done. And I thought
yeah.
that was really interesting.
Well, just to give people an idea of what he actually did, because you don't have one of the greatest scenes in Star Wars without Rick
Mhm.
Baker. It
Yep.
is the cantina bar scene. Every do 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 do, and you don't have all of those amazing aliens and creatures if you don't have Rick Baker
Yep.
and his time and his money. It
Yes.
was so the studio, so George Lucas loved the idea of creating all these different creatures for
Yeah.
this scene. However, George was very open and honest and said, we kind of don't have the budget for it. And
Yeah.
Rick went, okay, I have X amount of alien makeup, I have X amount of masks, I have this, I have that. I will give you it.
Yeah.
This is all him.
Mm-hmm.
So, because he was doing he was doing work with the what they called, oh, the studio that George Lucas uses. Oh, Oh, what's its name?
Industrial Light and Magic. No.
Yeah. No,
Is
yeah.
it Island?
No, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was doing work with them, and that's how the connection happened between the two. So yes, that cantina bar scene is him.
But what
All
people,
of it.
but what people don't know, he supplied the massive devil mask. You know when Luke and Hannah talk. Luke, I want to say it's Luke and Obi actually, or when he's at the bar, when Luke's at the bar, and the big devil guys in the background. You can see he looks a bit like the Prince of Darkness, Tim Curry's Prince.
Yeah.
That guy. That was a makeup that Rick just happened to have laying around that he'd sculpted for another movie that just didn't do anything.
The werewolfy looking type of thing.
Yeah.
That's all Rick.
And the thing that got me though was when he was talking about it, he said that everybody assumes that was shot in one big room.
Yeah,
like
it was.
You had the stage with the cantina playing, and then you had the bar and all the people around the bar. He said no, the bar scene existed in Pinewood when they filmed it, but the actual cantina band playing was filmed in New York.
Yeah.
And they spliced it all together. And he said the thing that he hated the most about the makeup he did for the cantina band was that they were masks.
Yeah, they're all masks.
And he said it was the fact that their eyes just looked dead. And he said you could tell when they were getting hotter and hotter. I don't know if you heard this, but you'd start to see the heads sink in where they were breathing.
I didn't.
And he said it was like because they didn't have enough foam and things that they could use to bulk the heads out whilst they're sat on top of the head. So you've got, like, if you imagine your head's this big and then you've got a mask on that's this big and it's this big, you need to put some sort of
there needs to be something there
in there to stop the head from collapsing.
Yeah,
because it's only thin. I think he used just latex for those ones, not foam latex. So he had them on. And he was saying that they managed to bulk out the top so that the heads looked bigger, but they hadn't had enough to bulk the sides out. So when the guys inside, they realized that the pinpricks that they'd made for the nose wasn't big enough. So you just see their heads breathing like this. And he said, at first I thought, oh, that's interesting. Does that work? And it was like, no, because it was only happening to like one or two of the band. And then the 3 or 4 of the others, it wasn't happening to. So it was quite amusing the way he was sort of explaining like how it came across and everything. But I genuinely was shocked when he said that was the scene he did as well. I was just like, really?
When I saw Star Wars, it just said makeup second unit. That's a lot of it. What I learned from going through from Octoman up to like going further and further was he is uncredited for a lot. So I'm just like thinking to myself, why is he and I even said to Ant, how can he be uncredited for so many things? And I'm thinking, well, maybe this is like the starting point. This is him getting, his foot in the door kind of thing. And then for it to be saying second unit for Star Wars, I was like, oh, well, maybe he just did bits and pieces, but to know he did the whole fucking cantina bar scene was beyond me. And I found it so funny when he was talking. He was saying, and you think Harrison Ford's sitting in that room with all them aliens? Think again.
He's always been a grumpy old fuck as Harrison,
Yes.
and I love him every day for it. So
Oh, me too. The 78 is the Fury, which I don't know a lot about.
pass.
No. So 1980. The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. See, I don't know what he did on that because I found it harder to find out more information about that one than I did about.
Yeah, because all he talks about is the cantina bar scene. Yeah. And I think because that is so massive, the scale of work he did, he very rarely mentions what he actually did in Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
So I found exactly the same as well. He is credited as just makeup and he's actually uncredited. Again. So maybe he just was a helper. I can imagine that Rick was very much consultant, putting kind of just helping out with units that needed it. He is not a man who needs to take credit for everything. He is actually happy to work with people.
Yes, he's incredibly organized as well. Like I've one of the documentaries I watched was they were interviewing other makeup artists that in passing, like V Neil, like obviously Tom, even
Who?
In a minute. In my head, I can see Neville.
Oh, Neville. I
He
want
was
to
on
say.
Face Off.
Why do I
Neville.
want to say Neville Chamberlain? Why would I want to say that? Oh
It's
my
all right. I was going to
God.
Longbottom. My brain went to Harry Potter. But Neville thingy anyway from
I
Face
know
Off.
it. I can picture him.
Yeah.
I can see him. He's on
Glasses.
face off.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on face off, guys.
They were all saying the same thing. If you needed something doing on time and you had a unit of any more than from one person to 30, Rick is your man.
Yeah.
Because he is so well organized. He knows what needs to be done when, and he knows how to make sure everything is a working part to a story.
Moving piece. Yes.
Yeah.
So we skip a year and we go to 1981, and we are at fuck yeah, it's a busy year. Jesus Christ, no wonder he took 82 off. We have one of it's probably the most revolutionary movie when it comes to makeup and to special effects in makeup. It is The Great American Werewolf in London.
Mm-hmm.
I watched this. So I know about American Werewolf in London. I have been to Tom Savini's makeup show in Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida. And this is for all it's not his work, even though Tom Savini is presenting this, he is very much excited in this presentation to talk about the transformation of man to werewolf that has never, ever been done on screen like this before.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. We watched Lon Chaney Jr. do it. It didn't go like that.
No. It was, there we go.
Oh, he's on the floor. Oh, look, he's a dog now. He's a dog.
He's a hairy dog man.
He's a hairy looking dog man. So yeah, I can't remember. I only ever remember Griffin Dunn. I can't remember the other guy because I want to say it's Dustin Hoffman, and it's not.
It's David Warner.
Why does he look like Dustin Hoffman?
I met David Warner actually at Spooky just gone, and
really?
Rob's got a huge American Werewolf tattoo here that was done by Paul Vander Johnson. And,
he showed us it.
Yeah, that big one there.
Yeah.
And David took one look at it and went, "Oh my God, man, that's amazing!" And he's really one of the nicest people.
I'm pleased.
And I was really surprised. I'd like to meet Griffin Dunn. Obviously, there's the connection between Griffin and Poltergeist, being that Dominique Dunn was his sister who got killed.
And Carrie Fisher. He was best friends with Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, but Griffin they did tell the story on the podcast, but I'd already heard the story elsewhere.
I'd never heard that story before.
In the story prior, he was saying that when you watch American Werewolf, no one looks at Jack's face. They look at the little wiggly bit of flesh.
Yeah.
Jack has on just after he dies on the first reiteration of Jack.
Mm-hmm.
You see this one, and he was right when he said it. I thought I always look at that. I always look at that bit of little dangly flesh hanging off rather than looking at his face or how the makeup's done. So Griffin was always so worried about him.
Was worried about a lot of things.
Yeah. Oh, well, it strikes me that he was a little bit sort of not sure what he was getting himself into. I mean, John Landis had come off the back of Animal House at that point because that's where he got the money to be able to make this movie. But prior to that, he'd done Schlock, and that was a 30k indie budget movie, no permits, as with most of the films in the early 70s, you know. And random.
A lot of things didn't change going into 83, so.
He did get the permission to have Piccadilly Circus though for 2 hours, which I thought was a fucking.
Well, I'm glad he knew how to fill the paperwork form out for it.
That was a hell of a bloody thing to pull off, though, to be able to get Piccadilly Circus for 2 hours.
What blew my mind when I watched it, because I only watched it last year. It's one of those movies that because I'd seen the transformation, I was like, it can just sit on the wheelhouse. And to be honest, up until recently, I've never been a werewolf fan. I'm not joking. Last year when we watched The Werewolf, that's the moment. That's when I'm like, oh shit, yeah, this is actually something. The main woman in it, the love interest.
Jenny Agutter, yeah.
Call the midwife.
Yes, Jenny Agutter.
Didn't know that. I was like,
so much. She's like British royalty actress.
where is your fucking nunnery at? I love Call the Midwife. I fucking binged that last year just to catch up, so me and my best friend can watch it together. I remember texting her going, "She's in this movie." I loved it, but the Griffin Dunn story really did make us laugh because he tells the story and he's like, dude, did you not even read the script? Did you not even see the description? Griffin Dunn kind of threw his doll out. Not that he didn't. He was I can understand it. And when they talk about when they do talk about other actors who've had to sit in, and even Gilbert Givey's own experience of having to sit in makeup for such a long time, how daunting it can be. They even said that Boris Karloff was famous for going home in his makeup because he was so fucking sick of sitting in the chair that he
And
would just
taking it
go
off.
home in
Yeah.
it. But Griffin Dunn was like, I don't understand why you doing me like this. I don't want to look like this. This is my big break. How is anyone going to notice me? And it's like, dude, you're dead. Like, in this movie, you are dead.
Yep.
What did you
Yeah,
expect?
I think he was so I think in one of the documentaries, and I don't know if it was in the podcast as well where he mentioned it, he said that Griffin was just incredibly grossed out by the
Yeah.
makeup as well. It was something that he really didn't like, and it forced him to deal with his own mortality, which
Yeah.
is kind of like I suppose it would, if you're looking back at yourself with horrific injuries,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, oh God, this
I'm
could be
gonna
me.
look like this.
You
But how
know,
much of a testament is that to Rick's makeup that he has made it so realistic that you are now thinking, shit, this is what I'm gonna look like after I'm gone.
and he detested the second iteration where he was starting to go corpse with the
Yeah.
slashes. This is the one that freaked him out the most, not just the fresh scratches, it was the scratches that became old, where his face was trying to be sunken in, and
Mm-hmm.
Rick couldn't work out a way of bulking out the face properly,
Mm-hmm.
so that you could do the progressive shrinking, because what a lot of people don't know, that don't have much information on special effects, practical special effects, is that if you're going to do a scene where someone has got to lose a lot of weight quickly, or if someone has over the space of the movie needs to lose the weight, or they die and they need to rot, things
Mm-hmm.
like that, they have to start off with a very healthy face. Now you think you're looking at say someone like me, and you see a perfectly round face and you think that that's their actual face. It's not. They build out on the cheeks, they try to take out some of the features so you don't notice, they put in extra cheek plates and things like that, and then as it goes down they remove
Mm-hmm.
matter to make him look more and more gaunt, even though their real face is somewhere in the middle of the transition. Their actual face that they have on a day-to-day basis with no makeup on at all is somewhere in the middle of the transition, but you look at them and go, oh, don't that person look like they're really gaunt? And it's not, that's their real face. He didn't like the fact that he was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, but Rick also
Mm-hmm.
said, I can't make him any smaller. When we get to do that third scene in the cinema,
Mm-hmm.
Griffin was like, I can't sit in that makeup. Rick was like, I can't do that kind of makeup if you're not, from what in my head, what I've got here and how I need to get it out, I can't have you in makeup either. So
Mm-hmm. What did they do?
they opted for a puppet, which I thought was a genius stroke. And it's a puppet, but that's not the point. It's an animated skeleton at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense to anybody. And plus, if you're a John Landis fan, again, makes perfect sense. He's taking the piss out of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I didn't realize how funny this movie was.
Oh, it can be. I think it gets a bit too serious in places, and then it's really funny in other places.
Pulls it back, and then pulls it forward, and then pulls it back. But then if it Animal House is some my dad fucking loves Animal House, and Animal House has a moment where it kind of like a bit serious, but then we'll really reel the funny in, tiny bit serious, and I kind of saw the kind of rhythm with that. I honestly I thoroughly enjoyed it. But if obviously the transformation of the werewolf is, I rewatched it the other day, Dan, and I squirmed a little bit.
Well, he was saying that they went through a lot of different types of material to try and work out the best way to show the skin stretching the way it does.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was where they said that they'd actually wrapped the film before the transformation had been filmed.
They
The
were
film was
actually not going to
redone.
show. Yeah, they were actually not going to show the werewolf at all.
Yeah,
It was just going to be a glimpse.
yeah.
And it wasn't until this that they decided, no, we need more.
What he was trying different like versions of membranes of like different levels of silicone and foam and latex to try and get the bubbly thing, you know, where you could see things pushing through the skin. So when you see the face took 6 months to make, and they shot for 10 minutes on the face and it was done. And Rick was so upset he didn't get to have longer. And when he saw it in the movie, he said it made perfect sense once it had all been cut into place and he should have trusted John. But in his head, he was like so angry that this whole sequence took 6 to 8 months to get to where they needed it, you know, to get all the pieces together to make it. Yet it was only a 10-minute sequence in the movie. But it turns out, you know, where the face elongates, that is Rick with his fist in a like in the inside the face, pushing a mouth that's attached with all the silicone foam, whatever they ended up using, membrane, like punching through, basically just punching the mouth through to get the stretch naturally. The same with the spine. They had like a because this is where Rick starts to get into his flow with using animatronics and using practical effects. And there were certain bits where when they're showing the spine pop through the membrane as well, it was slightly on a rig, but it wasn't like remote controlled or anything. But it was on like a rig where they pressed a button and it popped out. So when you see it in the movie, it's slowed down to look like it's a gradual process, but it was a really quick one when they were filming it. Also, most people know that David Norton, that's his name, was under the floorboard for half of it, and like his head and his shoulders for the bit where he's laying on his back halfway through the transformation. So they had to build a 2-floor stage as well for David to lay under, and then they had to build him into the set so that this part of his body here was all that was coming up. So he had his arms and his face and his shoulders to do all the emoting with for that section. And then he flips over, if I'm right, or he flips over from when he's back onto his front. But Rick had a thing where he wanted a 2-legged werewolf. He said to John, I want a 2-legged werewolf. John went, no, we want a 4. And he was like, why? Why are you making my life so difficult? And John was like, work it out. I don't care how you do it, but that's what we're having. And John was right in the end, because when you do see the scenes of the werewolf, the actor that was in the costume had it so bad when they were full-blown werewolf. They were in a wheelbarrow position, you know, from school when you did the wheelbarrow with another kid. They made a rig. Rick made a rig where their legs could sit on. And basically the actor that played the werewolf had to use his hands to pull them forward.
I'm just like in my head, like
so and the thing was, you presume that the actor's face is in that mask. It's not. The werewolf's face is actually on the top, so the nose comes out here on the actor's face, so that the actor could see where the hands was when he's looking down,
but he can't see forward.
So you can't see forward, so you're seeing what looks like an amazing scene, and it's cut in with puppetry for the back legs, because obviously they couldn't show the back legs because it's the guy on the rig going forward like this. So they had to do an element of puppetry on the back legs in certain scenes to show that the wolf had back legs, basically.
Well, we learned from Larry the 2-legged dog, 2-legged werewolves. It doesn't go very well, but I can understand why he would want to do that, given the fact that he is a huge Lon Chaney Jr. fan. So, and practicality would be better on 2 feet than, but that is so inventive. I have been to that Hollywood, the Universal Studios thing about the whole transformation. I can't remember any of it, to be honest. I can't remember most that was said in it. I just always remember this showcase of the transformation of it, and how Tom Savini's standing behind a monitor going, this is revolutionary, this changed the game. But I didn't do it.
It wasn't me.
It was not me.
They just stand here and point at things.
So from 1981 American Werewolf in London. Next is The Howling. However, he is not makeup artist. He is simply just consultant.
Rob Bottin took over from there.
Yes. And we all know about him. He's great. Go and listen to the thing. It's fantastic. Then we've got 1981's The Funhouse.
Mhm.
Never heard of it. Special effects. He's a special makeup designer on that.
Yeah.
Then we've got The Incredible Shrinking Woman, 1981, creator and designer of Sydney.
I feel like I've seen it, but I don't remember. Like
Nah.
the name makes me feel like I've seen it because like I used to love like Attack of the 50-Foot Woman and
Yeah.
those movies. So I feel like when I was going through a phase, I might have watched it, but I can't remember it.
Nah. The next one though, I remember very well.
Which one of the two from 1983 are we going for on this one?
I'm gonna quickly go on to one of the Videodrome.
Right. Yep.
Only because I have not actually seen Videodrome in its entirety because I didn't need to. After the head blowing incident, I was like, that's okay, I'm fine.
I was thinking we could possibly do it as an episode
Yeah.
Videodrome because it's
Absolutely.
so fucking weird.
100% agree on that.
So you're gonna get body horror. That's full stop. You're going into that world.
We will skip Videodrome because I love that idea because I can't get past the head blown up scene. I can't do it.
There's way worse going on.
I know. So we're going for this one, 1983. And it is Thriller Night.
Now we're taking Michael Jackson and all the politics, leave it behind. We ain't interested what you got to say. It's old.
Hey, yeah, if I've managed to be nice, if I've managed to keep my mouth shut about John Landis, you can do the same about Michael Jackson.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. No matter who you are or what you say, that song comes on, everybody still fucking sings. It doesn't matter whether it's Christmas, New Year, it's New Year, it's bloody Halloween. That song comes out, you know it. It is just standard. Plus Vincent Price is on it. He did that in one take.
Because he's the man.
He was next door. Michael went in there and said, "Excuse me, would you mind coming and just reading this on my next song?" And Vincent went, "Yeah, why not?" Went out, memorized it in one read.
Because again, he is the man.
Read it straight out, word for word, did the laugh at the end, which wasn't expected. And then still up until the day he died, he could recite it on the spot for any interviews he did.
There's a Johnny Carson interview. I want to say it's Johnny Carson. I could be completely wrong, but there is an interview. It's on YouTube. There's not a lot of talk shows that he did, but the ones that he did do, they did get him to recite it, and he did it verbatim because he, again, like I said, is the man. I genuinely didn't know up until this research that it was Rick Baker who did Thriller. Looking at Michael as werewolf, totally fucking see it.
Did you also know Rick Baker is actually in the video?
Is he a zombie?
Yes.
Yes.
There's a bit where there's a guy who pushes a door from a crypt and pokes his head round. That's him, the one that pushes the door and pokes around. You can tell it's Rick. He's got long hair and he's got a goatee.
Okay, but I can't picture. If you look at Rick when he wins his Academy Award, that doesn't look like Rick Baker, who I know. It's so weird. But yes, I did know that. But when I look at it's the hair. It's the precision of the hair as Michael with the werewolf. It's perfect.
Because that was the thing as well. Because I think this came off of the Schmogan bit that I watched.
I think so, because I watched that. There's a section on Thriller. Yeah,
he was talking about whether it was supposed to be a wolf or a cat, and he said that he looked at Michael's features and he was like, he's not wolf-like, he's more cat-like, and he said his moves are very much like feline when he like broke it down. So that's when he put in the whiskers and made it very cat-like with the cat eyes for the thing.
The cat eyes always reminds of the Mac on Always Sunny. When he's on Dear Man.
Defender of the sun.
I've just been watching that episode.
honestly,
But-
it's Danny with his carrot nose. It's just
Oh, you want to pay? You gotta pay the
the
troll
toll.
toll if you want to get in this boy's hole.
Yeah.
I got your troll. I got no. Was it? I got your toll troll.
Oh, it's just that song. I wake up in the morning with that in my head sometimes.
Really?
Amen. Defender of the
the
sun.
night man.
Oh God.
Thriller is on every playlist I have. So I have a couple of playlists, depends what mood I'm in. Movie one, it's on there.
Yeah.
Horror one, it's on there. And my Iceland Kills / Misfits playlist, it's on there because Iceland Kills do an amazing cover of it.
Well, the thing about it is, when they chose the shooting location for it, it was an old meat. It wasn't an old one. It was an active meat packing district in LA, I think, where they filmed it. And he said they had to wait for the end of day for it to get dark and the people go home. But in doing so, they were slaughtering the animals just before they were filming. And they said the smell was absolutely disgusting because they were obviously slaughtering the animals just before they left for them to bleed out and do what they needed to do. And, you know, basically for the next day. And the smell in the area, he said it was just like all consuming. Everybody was complaining about how bad it was. But this is where he was saying that he employed, and I use that term lightly, he had like 15 people that had written him letters that were fanboys. And he said, all right, come and do this makeup with me. And for Thriller. And it turned out he couldn't use any of these people, but he trusted them from working on American Werewolf with him. But he couldn't use them because it was a union job. So he, at the last minute, he had to have 30 unionized makeup artists that he didn't trust, didn't work with. They didn't know what Rick's vision was. They hadn't worked on the prosthetics to make them like the guys that he'd trusted. He had sole responsibility of making Michael up as a zombie and making Michael as the cat. They were that was his duty, you know. And so he was running around making Michael up, checking the 30 guys, making sure all the zombies look right. That's why he said the ones that are further back you don't really see very well because they're all wearing masks.
Yeah.
He said, but the majority of the ones you see up front have got prosthetics. The rest at the back are all masks because he just didn't have time to do what he wanted with it, which I thought was clever in a way because you don't spot it. You don't spot it until he points it out. So
do you know I didn't think to watch because I've seen the making of Thriller like God, I can't count how many times, but I didn't think to go back and watch it now knowing that Rick Baker, because I generally didn't, whether I just forgot or just generally didn't know, I had no idea, like just no idea he was a part of it. And I'm like, was he in that? Was he in that making of? Did I just completely forget that? Because I'm not going to forget Rick Baker like at all.
He's in it, and he basically, I think he had a meltdown in the middle of it all because when they took his people away and replaced his people.
I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised. We're going to skip to 1987. I know I'm very excited about this one. 1987. Love this movie. Harry and the Hendersons. He was the creative designer for Harry the Puppeteer and makeup artist. Oh my God. I remember watching this as a kid and just being like, what the fuck? Like, what is happening?
I was 7 when this came out in the cinema. We weren't well off in the 80s. My mum and my dad, there wasn't a lot of money there, you know. So we didn't get to see it until it came out on video, which was probably about 1989, because video releases were a long time after the cinema run. So it was probably 88, 89 before I even got to see it.
We had to practice patience, kids, in the 80s.
It wasn't even on TV until at least 4 years after it came out in the cinema. That's how long you had to wait. But yeah,
I would have seen this with my granddad on VH. Absolutely, like this is 100% like my granddad's imprint would have been on here somewhere.
It's everything about it. John Lithgow, just Poirot. It's a masterpiece in acting and special effects working together in a way almost like how Andy Serkis and the CGI work together, but Kevin Peter Hall, for those of you who don't know, played Harry. But he was also famous for a certain creature that we've also covered on this podcast before. Sadly, Kevin's no longer with us. He died, I think, of sickle
Oh,
cell, but he was famous mainly for being the predator.
yeah,
Kevin was the predator. He
he was the
was
predator.
seven
I
foot
had
four.
loads of fucking notes on him as well, and I genuinely just forgot his name right there. And then
Yeah,
I was quite sad when I read about that because he only did Predator and Harry and the Hendersons, and I
yeah.
remember us on our Predator episode again, going back and watch. It was oh, god damn it.
This is the thing that worked so well. Rick insisted on Kevin's eyes being Harry's eyes. So they're not animatronic. So when you see Harry, everything, his mouth, his ears, anything that moves on the exterior is all radio controlled. But the eyes are Kevin's eyes. So all the emoting
Oh,
is actually done by Kevin. The only issue that Rick had about it was the fact that he wanted green eyes. And Kevin didn't have green eyes, he had
no, he
brown
did
eyes.
not.
So he was like, I don't know how this is going to work. But he pulled it off. Kevin did
Oh,
such an amazing job. I mean, I loved Harry. I like, when you're a little kid, and it's not a
mhm.
crush, but when you absolutely would go running up to them and give them the biggest hug in the universe.
Yeah.
That is exactly how I felt about Harry. I wanted a Harry. I
It's
literally wouldn't care if he turned the house upside down. I wanted a Harry. So
oh, I totally get what you mean, but mine was Beethoven the dog. Like, I've wanted that dog, so I just wanted a big dog. But it's so weird because I'm reading my best friend's Exorcist at the moment, and it's the beginning part of Abby, who was one of the main characters. She's fucking obsessed with ET.
I've watched the
Like,
film. It's terrible.
oh, I've got no interest in the film.
I don't.
The book is fantastic. Like, I'm only getting up to like the nitty gritty, and I was reading it on my dinner today, and I went, "No, I'm gonna go back to work." But yeah, she's like a completely obsessed with ET. Like, her life revolves around ET to the point where she's so upset with this new girl that she's met at her birthday party, which is an ET themed birthday party. She has not seen ET. Like, Gretchen has not seen it. She is fucking furious. So she just drags her to the movie theater to go and see it, and Gretchen doesn't get it.
See, yeah, I mean, I probably have been like that with a lot of my friends at some point, ever since
Yeah.
I was a little kid. And I probably was about this film because when it does the behind the scenes, it does make you sit back and go, geez, like the suit
Mhm.
itself took 6 months to build. Individual hairs were hand plucked, hand plucked
Mhm.
into it. Not plucked, but you know what, hand,
Yeah.
poked into it. Um, the heads, they had 2 or 3 separate heads because they were worried about the radio control servos failing, things like that. So they wanted to make sure they had 2 options. He stood finally. I mean, Kevin was around 7'4" ish, give or take.
Mhm.
He was over 7 feet tall, and
He
they
was
said
a
that,
giant.
yeah, this suit made him 8'4". So they said he had, when they put it on, and the top of his head, there was around between 4 and 5 inches between Kevin's head and the top of Harry's head, with the wispy bits of hair at top. And they had him on 4 inch like platforms with
Mhm.
inside the feet as well. So they wanted him to sound so high. John Lithgow himself's over 6 feet. So they wanted to
I
make
forget how
sure,
tall he is.
yeah, so they wanted to show the dynamic, and they had the first screen test they did, they hadn't put the lifts in the shoes at that point,
Mhm.
and it was just Kevin on standing, and they said it just didn't look imposing enough. So then they had to
Yeah.
go back and redesign the heights on the shoes to make that extra, there's a scene where he's in the house and he's just destroyed it, and he's just standing over John Lithgow, like you think he's going to beat the crap out of John Lithgow, and he's not. He just like smiles at him or something. I can't remember because I haven't seen it in ages, and I really wanted to go back and watch it, but I
Me
just didn't
too.
get the time.
Me too.
So
I decided to watch something else instead, that has no relevance whatsoever to what we're talking about. But I was actually going to text you and say I can't remember this movie very well. Does anything sad happen in it?
loads of
Because
sad things happen, but
but is it
mate,
to the point where it's going to break my heart? Because like I can't deal. I saw a clip of Harry and the Hendersons, and I was in awe. Like I haven't watched it. I haven't gone back and looked at anything at that for such a long time. As a kid, I'm not looking at what I'm looking at now, and
Yeah.
I was in so much. Oh, look at the fucking work! Look at the craftsmanship in that. And then I was like, do I want to watch this? Yeah, I want to watch this. Is there a sad part in it? Because I can't. There's one thing I don't do very well as an adult: creatures in movies that get hurt.
It's not
I
physical
can't
hurt.
stand it.
It's not physical sad. Like he doesn't get
Does you
hurt.
guys feelings hurt though?
Yeah, badly in the middle of it, and that's the bit where you actually see how good an actor Kevin is, just with his eyes and his body movement.
If I can
Because
handle
you,
it.
your heart breaks for him, but then it all works out in the end, as it always does. But you know, he did such an amazing job. I didn't even know he was Harry. I did not know Kevin Peter Hall played Harry. I mean, we might
I
have
can't
mentioned
even.
it
I
in the
genuinely
one, but I
can't
don't
remember if
remember.
we did.
I mean, that's going back. I think it was the third or fourth one we did. So if you want to go back, it's featuring Creature from the Black Tattoo. He
Yes.
featured in the Predator episode. So I mean, he's probably shouting at me now if he's watching. Sorry.
Apologies.
I don't remember if we had that conversation or not.
I don't think I wrote in this notebook because there's Tom Savini. I know we did. Yeah, we definitely did that well before that. It's in another notebook. But I can't remember mentioning it. But then when you said it, I felt like I knew it. But then I'm like,
Yeah.
did I know it? Did I? I'm not sure. It's very late on a Thursday night.
It is. I mean, he then does some crackers after that, doesn't he?
Well, Beauty and the Beast.
The TV show.
Ron
Yeah.
Perlman and Linda Hamilton. Episodes wrote by George R.R. Martin.
Met both of those.
Get fucked. Yeah, so he does Beauty and the Beast. He does 2 TV shows actually. Beauty and the Beast, actually, by the way, don't know a great deal about it, but I have seen Ron Perlman's
I remember it.
his
Excellent.
Holy shit, that is beautiful.
That's the
beautiful.
thing. Right? This is where Rick shines, because Rick decided that they came to Rick and they said, right, we want a Beauty and the Beast makeup. And he was like, well, I'll only do it if you let me come to the casting calls for the person that you pick. I want to see, because I need to know the face. I need to know the shape. This is what I want. This is what you need to suit this kind of makeup. And he said he hadn't been 100% sold on how he was going to design Vincent's makeup until he met the person and looked at the person that they were going to get. And when they settled on Ron, he looked at him straight away and was like, lion. He is a lion. We're going to make a lion Beauty and the Beast. He said his face just lent perfectly to the.
He has the best face for makeup, doesn't he?
And this is where his working relationship started with Ron.
Yeah. So that relationship starts there. Then we've got another TV show called Werewolf in 1987, 1980. He only did the designs for that. Yeah. But then we've got Coming to America in 1988. Now, this is the end of the Landis relationship and the start of the Murphy relationship.
Yes. I mean, it is up there. This movie is up there for me. It's definitely in my top 10. It is just ridiculous.
I've never seen it. I know.
It's so stupid, though. This is the thing. Everything about it is stupid. It's your typical stupid 80s movie. A prince doesn't want to be a prince anymore. He wants to experience life as a normal, common person. So he moves from his huge palace in Zamunda to
it's James Earl Jones with his dad, isn't it?
Well, this is he moves to Queens because he thinks it sounds rich, and it's a dive when he gets there. And he starts working at McDowell's, which is the rip-off version of McDonald's. And it's owned by it's so well done. But the makeups, Eddie plays about 4 or 5 different characters.
I've seen the clip. So I watched a montage of his movies, and this was the clip that they showed was the barber shop clip. And holy shit, I was like, you can see when Nutty Professor, where the ideas, where the cogs, where the changes were happening. And I know what he said. I don't know if he talked about it was this on Nutty Professor. He found it so difficult to do Eddie Murphy's face,
Yeah,
because what studios wanted
was
and what
Eddie.
he could actually do was two different things. And I can't remember if it was this one or Nutty Professor that he struggled on.
I think it was Nutty because this one, I think the only issue he had with this one was trying to make Eddie, who is a very strong featured man,
Mm-hmm.
into the Jewish guy in the barbershop.
Holy shit, when I realized that was him, I lost my fucking mind. I honestly thought it was just some guy.
Yeah.
Some guy doing the best Woody Allen impression he possibly could think to do. To know that that's him, I was like, holy shit.
The hardest thing for me is taking Eddie's ego away. If I can take Eddie's ego away, then you can see he's a good actor and he's very, very good at what he does. The problem is his ego supersedes his abilities for me because of the stories that I know about him.
Yeah. He had a
He
bit of a humbling moment at SNL when he got to host SNL, when he got to come return. Bit of a some humbling moments in there. Went back
he
to his roots a
yeah.
bit.
It took him, I think the older he's getting now, the more he's understanding that he's not current.
Yeah.
He's not Eddie as we know it. But with Coming to America, he played so many characters, but my favorite is will always be will always be Sexual Chocolate. He's the singer that sings I believe the children are our future. Let them shoot away. And it's just how he does it, and it's so sleazy. He's wearing the 70s pale blue pale blue suit with a white ruffled shirt, and he's got the hanky, and he's got the just let your soul glow hair. And it's down here, and it's like
I
he's got
really
buck
need to watch
teeth
this.
in, and he's just got the hanky, and he's like constantly patting his head. He's just like every cliche, but there's something about the way he does this film. Because Rick did all of those makeups. He also did Arsenio Hall's makeups because Arsenio did play about 3 or 4 characters as well.
Yeah.
Considerably less than Eddie, but he definitely played more than one character in it. And I did not know that was Rick Baker, even though it makes perfect sense because it's John Landis. But again, I didn't realize Rick Baker. So
but this is the end now of the Landis relationship, and the starting point of the Eddie Murphy relationship. Now, if you watch the Nerdy Up North's episode on Trading Places, you will know the reason why the relationship between Landis and Murphy ends at this point is because John Landis is a murdering bastard. I'm only joking.
Well, technically, the murdering bit is by association.
John Landis in 1983 did a movie. He did not do the movie. He did a part of the movie and unfortunately, due to his I want to say stupidity, but there's probably stronger words out there.
He insisted on a certain shot and didn't care how it was done. From
He
what
didn't care, and some labor laws were chucked out there as well, and it resulted in, unfortunately, the passing of Vic Morrow and 2 Vietnamese children.
Yep.
And John Landis is the first ever movie director who has ever been taken to trial over manslaughter charges. And he asked Mr. Murphy to be his character witness, and Eddie turned around and went, "Fuck no." He said, he says, I'm not here to say what you did was right, what was wrong. But in my opinion, if you were taking 2 children out at a certain time with machinery you have no control over, then maybe you should be answering some questions. And John took offense to that, and it all kicked off in Coming to America.
Well, this was the thing. For those of you who don't know, it isn't just we're just saying, oh, they drowned in a swimming pool, or oh, they retired and they just died. It wasn't. This was one of the most horrific ways to go.
Horrific.
These 3 people, these 2 children and Vic Morrow were sliced in half by a helicopter blade.
Yep.
Real helicopter that crashed somehow, I don't know if the engines failed, he didn't land it properly. I can't remember. There is an episode of Cursed Films, which it's a really, really good episode.
It's really good. It's on
it's
on Shudder.
Amazon. Yeah. If you go back and watch that, it explains it in more detail and it talks all about it. But it's such a horrific thing because the families were all watching.
Yep.
As well. So it wasn't just a matter of, they just thought that they'd all just ducked under the water and they were fine. And it wasn't until bits started bobbing up that they realised that wasn't the case. So
yeah, John Landis got away with murder.
Basically, even though he didn't technically kill them directly himself,
there's a lot of things that he skirted around in order for that shot to be made because he had to have that shot.
Yeah.
And what's really sad is Twilight Zone. I love the film. That whole part there with Vic Morrow, oh my god, it is beautiful.
It is saving the kids, isn't he? Basically,
but the character he plays is a man. He walks into a bar and he has a conversation with three of his friends, and you learn that this man is a fucking racist. He's a bigot. He's a homophobe. He's the fucking worst of the worst. And his friends are trying to say, "Listen, dude, you can't talk like that." And he's like, "I am who I am, and I'll be who I'll be." And me. And when he leaves the bar, he is put in every terrible position in history. He is in the Holocaust. He is America in the 60s, and it's like, as a black man, and he is part of every worst atrocity of the human nature that, like, I don't know if I'm saying the right words.
No, I know what you mean. Human history.
Human history.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the bit where it went wrong. And the story ends where God, do you know what? I've seen so many things on it. I generally can't remember if they're going up to the helicopter and it just fucking ends.
Yeah, you just see them there, and then you see the helicopter, and then it cuts.
And then it cuts. And then he's back on the train. A train goes past and he's back at the bar.
Yeah.
And that's it. That is it. It ends. And oh my God, it was so beautiful up until that moment. This man getting these fucking just desserts, getting to learn lessons. And then for him to it just ends. The story ends. And I can't believe that he was so fucking careless. I can't believe I'm making this into a John Landis thing on a Rick Baker podcast, but it really gets my goat. It really annoys me that the lengths that he went to get his fucking shot.
Well, this is why it took John, even though Coming to America was a hit because of Eddie and because of Arsenio, I think that was, and James Earl Jones. I mean, if you go and look at the star-studded list of people in that, I mean, you've even got Eric DeSalle, I think it is, who was huge when in the 90s when ER came out. He was one of the ER doctors, with
I love a bit of ER, man. Yeah.
And so, you start looking at the people that were going. Even Samuel L. Jackson's in Coming to America. Very small part, but he's in it. And I think that was one of his first roles.
I think people forget that Samuel L. Jackson was not a big player until the 90s. He was just a bit part. He was a bit part actor, and then that's a story for another time, though.
Yeah, I mean, if you now look at where John Landis went from Coming to America in 88, 89, where I can't personally, without doing any research, and I'm not saying he hasn't had any big hitters, but I don't recall off the top of my head from 90s onwards any massive John Landis movies that were as successful as his 80s period. 80 to 89, he was the man, the go-to guy for a movie. American Werewolf, Oscars through galore. It's probably one of the very few horror movies that's ever been up for an Oscar.
Yeah. You don't get them nowadays.
Nope. There is a very small percentage. You think there's about, I don't know, millions of horror movies that have been made over the years. Especially in this day and age where anyone can pick up a camera and film anything. And you're probably only talking about like 0.01% of movies have ever been considered at the Oscars because horror movies just aren't taken seriously.
When Jordan Peele won for
Get Out, was it?
Get Out. Yeah. When Jordan Peele won for Get Out, I cried. I was like, holy shit. horror has been recognized, because the last time that the horror was recognized was Silence of the Lambs, and they changed it to thriller.
Yeah.
They even changed the category to thriller because they couldn't stand the idea of a horror movie actually being, I mean, it is a thriller. I mean, just throw that one out there. It is a thriller, but it's also a fucking horror as well.
But it's one of those things where it he had a good run in the 80s whilst all that crap kicked off with the Twilight Zone. Unnecessary crap, ridiculous,
Unnecessary.
stupid ass crap. But it was, the 80s was John Landis's time.
Oh, fuck yeah. Animal House, Trading Places, American Werewolf in London, Coming to America, fucking even Twilight Zone to a degree. It was still in there.
Blues Brothers.
Blues Brothers.
You know, you've got a long laundry list of John Landis movies in the 80s. So
can't remember any in the 90s though.
That's
Wonder
what I'm
why.
saying. I'm not saying the 90s he didn't, but off the top of my head, the 80s is where Landis was and lived. And I didn't know that him and Rick had such a
history.
Of so many movies together. I knew, like I said, I knew he started off with John on a B movie. I didn't know it was schlock until I started going through. And then I knew he worked on Thriller with him.
Mm-hmm.
But then that's probably where it sort of stopped for me with and then American Werewolf. And they're the ones I knew that he'd worked with him on. But then when you go to Come Into America and stuff like that, I was like, what? No.
Well, yeah, I know. I didn't know that until it came up on the clip, and then because I was only partway, I was like, my God, I actually wrote down every single movie he did in the 70s and 80s, like handwritten down the year and what he did. And I had to take a break, and that's when I started watching the clips, and it was just like a highlight reel of movies that he'd been involved in. And when that came up, I was like, oh my God, holy shit. But it kind of ends our journey through the 70s and 80s quite lovely. I know there's one more.
Yeah.
Because we've got the Landis era. We're going to have the Murphy era on part 2. But the last movie of the 80s for Rick Baker is Gorillas in the Mist.
Yep.
Oh, fuck me. Can totally understand why he's part of this. It's a monkey, obviously. Yes, gorilla. He's in this. But I went through a huge Diane Fossey phase. Like, I went down rabbit holes fucking galore, leading up to the point of this movie was going to be the end point of that rabbit hole. And my husband turned around and went, you cannot watch this film.
No,
he went, no. He says, you cannot watch this. He says, there was one scene in it, Sam, and I'm not joking. You will never get over this.
Yeah, it breaks it.
I had to go and I'm filling up thinking about it. I had to go and look at the plot and see for myself what he was talking about. And I went, no, I can't do this. I
mean, it's been a long time since I've seen it. It was definitely the early 90s when I saw it. The whole Jane Goodall, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I remember we definitely watched it with my nan and my granddad for sure on VHS, me and my sister. And when that bit happened, I remember my nan was like, oh God, Ted, we're going to have to stop it because the girls are going to get really upset. And me and my sister were both probably sat there blaring our eyes out when it happened, because
I haven't even seen it. And was just... to know it happened, it really, I'm sorry guys, I'm not even going to say what happened. I'm not even, you can go and find that information. Yeah, you can go and find that information out for yourself if you've not already seen it. I am a very sensitive person, but I am even more sensitive when it comes to animals, regardless if it's real or not. I can't deal with it. Honestly, when I say it will affect me, it will really. What's that? The dodo. The dodo is a clip thing that comes up on my phone on Facebook or on TikTok, and it's all about animals. Oh my God, animals in the worst position. It's like the worst position possible. Then they get rescued, then they get put in their lives. I can't fucking get past the worst part because I am hysterically crying. So it takes me a long time to get to the good part. I've had to put something on my phone to stop that from coming up. I cannot deal with seeing them type of videos. I
Yeah.
fucking can't. My mental health can't take it. It just
so
can't.
do not by any stretch of the amount, just any what put yourself through gorillas in the mist if you cannot take animal cruelty, animal poaching, animal abuse. I mean, that whilst they are puppets,
Yes.
for want of a better word,
I know.
some of them are actors. It still really happened. They're portraying what actually happened,
Yeah.
according to Jane Goodall. So
Yeah. I just can't. I can't physically do it. No. And I won't. And don't get us wrong, I don't live in a naive bubble of, oh, everything's all happy and rainbow and unicorns and this, that, and the other. I am not that person. I'm very realistic. I just can't. It's seeing it in my mind and it playing it over. I hyper focus on things. It plays over and over again. I once saw an image of someone put their hand into pieces of bread and bite their fingers down. I physically can't to this day get my image out of my fucking head.
what I would
suggest, this would kill me.
What I would suggest to anybody that hasn't seen this film, even if you don't want to watch it, by all means, just Google the image of Sigourney as Jane Goodall talking to the gorilla, one of the silverbacks, when they're sat face to face, and it's a very iconic scene from the movie. And that obviously is an actor, and that is one of the most beautiful monkey, ape, gorilla, wherever we're going with that, suits that you've ever seen. Now, I'm not gonna go into it, but this is where the Mighty Joe Young thing comes in. This is where he is the monkey man for a reason. In this film, this is his best work.
Yeah. For all I've not seen it, I have seen images of the posters. I've seen images online. Obviously, like I say, I went through massive rabbit holes. It is Diane Fossey, isn't it? No,
Jane Goodall's the lady that Sigourney was playing.
Was it?
Yeah, Jane Goodall. She's famous for going and living in the mountains with the gorillas.
Did she?
Yeah, and that's what the movie's about, basically.
It's Diane Fossey.
Is it really? Jane Goodall then? Who the bloody hell am I thinking?
I was like, hold a minute. I read a lot, Dan.
Yeah, no, you're like you say, you're right. I am right. Jane Goodall.
She's a primatologist, so she is in the same field, but she's not.
She's the chimp lady. That's why I'm getting confused.
And she's very, very much alive.
Yes,
Diane Fossey is not.
Yeah, Jane Goodall's the chimp lady. Sorry, my bad.
That's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
But yeah, she's famous for going up and living in the mountains and literally.
Oh, to be honest, they're both the same person.
Yeah, they are just totally different. But it's the same premise. They both did this. The Diane and Jane. But Diane did it in such a way that she
was dangerous.
She did some stupid shit
which cost her her life. So, but I'll still fucking take my conservationists. I am all for yous.
I'm going to ask you a question then. Out of all the movies we've just covered,
okay, you got a list.
What are your top 2 Rick makeups?
Oh, okay, good question. Oh, because do you know why? Because if I hadn't listened to them podcasts today, it would have been a totally different list. And you probably think I'm going to go with the obvious, and I am, The Exorcist. And knowing what he did to Max's face is just breathtaking. Oh God, I can't believe you're going to make us pick 2.
You can go to 3 if you want.
Oh please, the Cantina Bar.
Yeah,
because fuck me, that's a lot of work and a lot of masks, and when you start to research Rick and listen to him and go over some of the interviews he's done, that's him in that room. That is all him. But King Kong really fucking impressed us. Really impressed us. Oh, I can't believe you're going to make us only pick. Oh, that was so hard.
That was 3. You did well. That's 3.
Oh, go on then. What's yours?
Harry and the Hendersons. 100%.
Oh my God, I totally forgot about
Harry will live in it. He lives rent free in my brain, Harry. I will say just everything. I mean, I know this is probably pretty obvious, but American Werewolf, just for the fact that the amount of time that went into the transition, just the logistics, being able to work out how the hell he was going to do these things, and he delivered on every request that he was given. You know, he was adamant he wanted it one way. John was adamant it was going to be another way. John's the director. John gets what John wants, and Rick made it work. Even when the actors weren't being compliant, he still made it work so that the actor got a respite or got what they needed. But
Perfect.
third is a difficult one because I'm torn between two. I did watch Beauty and the Beast when I was a kid growing up. I knew I was very shocked when I saw Ron Perlman out of makeup for the first time because
he's more beautiful as the Beast as he was as himself. Yeah.
When you see,
you can't say no.
No, because that's the thing. Because there's an interview with Ron Perlman that said that when he was Vincent the Beast, he actually had women queuing up at his door because they thought he was such a suave, handsome gentleman.
Yeah.
And when he took his makeup, he got completely ignored by all the women.
It's the same with Hellboy.
So it is. I mean, and that's again, Hellboy is a Rick creation, so we will hit that later.
That is a part tour.
But yeah, I mean, I'm torn between that one and Coming to America because some of the characters in that are so iconic, and if he hadn't have done some of the face changes, then you wouldn't have the characters that you have now. So I've got me monkey in there. Well, we're not, we're Bigfoot, my Sasquatch. I've got my sort of werewolfy, liony,
horror-y,
and then I've got my standard person makeup. So I think I've covered all three bases in that. But
yeah,
I do think this man, if you don't know who he is,
oh, please go and look at him.
Please, please, please look it up because he is everything. And you wouldn't have movies, you wouldn't have half the transformations, you wouldn't people just carbon copied him after that transition.
And scary, and the scary thing is we've only just scratched the fucking surface. This is just 70s and 80s. We have the part 2 next week, which is and I'm so fucking excited. And we have the 90s into the 2000s because Rick did retire quite young. At his own volition, because he wanted to just be able to make makeup what he wanted to make. And you can actually find Rick on YouTube. On his Instagram, he posts regularly. It's still fucking pretty spectacular. So we end at 1988. Gorillas in the Mist. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. We are back next week with part 2, which is going to be even fucking crazier. If you think this was crazy, we are getting into some of the, if you are watching on audio, Dan has an amazing backdrop that will look great for next week.
I've got way more stuff for next week, trust me. I've got a lot of stuff Rick Baker wise.
Yeah, Stan's got a full backdrop of gremlins, which, to be fair, she always has the big gremlin on anyway, regardless of what is. So
the flasher gremlin is always
he's always there. But gremlins will be next week.
Yes, I didn't have anything leading up to 1990 that I could put up.
Yeah, I mean, I have a Star Wars picture, but it's of the new ones, and I've got my Star Wars shiz is all over here, and nobody wants to see Jar Jar because he had nothing to do with him. Pity. Yes, so we are here every Monday at 7 7 7. I was gonna say 7:30. It's honestly, it's very late. We are here every Monday at 7 on YouTube. You can find all of our links for Nerdy Up North, Bleeding Marvelous, and our very own Monsters Up North socials. Where are they, Dan? They're down here. They're
down there
here.
somewhere. Yeah.
Down below. Yes, this goes up on a Monday night for Monster Monday, but all audio from wherever you get your podcast from goes up every Tuesday. I'm getting very good at doing this. I'm all prepared, you know. I get all prepared and everything's all ready to go. And I'm like, Tuesday come. Yeah. Yeah, that's part 1. I am so, do you know what? For all, I'm very tired. I'm kind of like, so fucking good. Like, I can't wait for fucking next week. Thank you everyone for watching. Say goodbye, Dan.
Say goodbye, Dan.
Stay spooky, everyone. Bye.